For capture, we use actually several different pieces of software. For our selective archive, we're still using HTTrack. It's something that we've been using since the near beginning of the web archive, and it's showing its age now, and we would like to migrate away from it. But it has certain advantages particularly for quality assurance and being able to fix JavaScript issues that some of the newer tools don't have. We use Heritrix for broad crawling, including the domain crawls that the entire archive uses it. We also use it in-house for like subdomain crawls, like the Australian government, all the Australian government websites. That's something we haven't tied into our selective workflows yet, so that's something that the use of Heritrix is currently limited to staff with reasonable technical skills, but we would like to be able to automate that more so that curators without those skills can also take advantage of it. And we also use a tool for collecting documents like PDF files and Word documents individually. That's just like capture this right now, save it, and be able to instantly cut and paste the URL into a catalogue record. So that's more your kind of publications collecting workflows rather than strictly web archiving. And then we also have more recently been using the web recorder that Rhizome developed for material that is difficult to capture but very high value. And we are also now experimenting with Browser for collecting media, YouTube, and that sort of thing. So we're currently using OpenWayback for access, which unfortunately has stagnated in recent years, so it's not really meeting our needs as well as we'd like it to. We've been experimenting internally with potentially switching to Python Wayback, but we haven't got that in production yet. We do have it like a staff-only sort of preview version of it. Search is integrated with our larger Trove search service, and it's based on Solr, and we've got some custom plugins and things that do things like grouping results by domain name, and then grouping the different timestamp snapshots within that. We've also got we also calculate PageRank for the collection and use that to influence improve the relevance ranking of the results within Solr, and that's a custom system or custom batch process to calculate that. Preservation, we have an in-house storage layer called DOS, the Digital Object Storage System, that is shared with all of our digital collections, and it provides like an abstract object level storage that under the hood we use network attached storage and also tape storage, and it's that abstraction layer kind of manages storing the multiple copies and validating checksums and that sort of thing. And then the library as a whole uses Preservica for digital preservation, like format conversion and being able to find what types of material you have. Currently, we don't have the web archive in there just because it's so much bigger. It hasn't been, the digital preservation team has been focusing on other areas that are a little bit more achievable and don't require as much hardware resourcing, but I suspect into the future at some point we will integrate the web archive.
We have been evolving our crawling. So initially we just used Heritrix. We used Heritrix 1 for a long time, then we migrated to Heritrix 3. Now we are also using Browser and Web Recorder to do patching. So for some collections we do some patching. Like if you have a whole website that is damaged because there's a CSS missing, you can patch it with Web Recorder. It's quite useful. And then for replay we have PyWB, use PyWB. And then for full text search, a few years ago we started using Nutwax. Then we did a little tuning and another and a little tweak. A PhD thesis by my colleague Miguel Costa, and we did basically a new component. So we have, well, actually our search, full text search is powered by our own software. It's based on Lucene, but it's something different that we did, and it works better than HWX. We did the testing, but works a lot better. For image search, we use basically Solar. We plan in the future to migrate not from our Lucene HWX based search, full text search to Solar, but like we are a running train, so we're gonna have to do this in phases.
Actually, I wouldn't be able to give any name of a software because everything we use was homemade. So we don't give them any name. We just have the crawler, for example, which is the in-house crawler.
Archive it, and we had a set of legacy data that we got from the California Digital Library web archiving service. And I think I'd mentioned we have maybe I didn't. We have a local crawler that I think has only really been used for kind of one-off requests, but I believe we're trying to move away from that and have everyone just use Archive It for crawling. And other software, well, for storage, we have our locally built repository and the swap portal. I think those are the main. And the SearchWorks catalog too. I guess you can include that for discovery and access, because you kind of click through the captures and then that brings you to the portal page.
We use NetArchive Suite. And we also use as a nomination tool, as another layer on NetArchive Suite, BCWeb, which is a tool built and designed by the National Library of France, who they share the tool with us, and we use Open Wayback for resources, for access, and we are now working on the way to ingest our web archive in our digital preservation environment, which is Live Safe.
We actually do two different things. I'll talk about what I know the best. In the digital libraries, we actually run Heritrix 3 directly. We work with Open Wayback for playback. We are starting to use Web Recorder for certain kinds of capture when it's really challenging or if it's really small. And we've also used other tools. Anything that can write a work, we've probably used. And so we've used wget that writes to work. And we provide access through Wayback. We've started to experiment some with PyWayback. And we, as of right now, don't have a search solution. That's one of the areas that I know we really want to provide access, more services on. We also have an Archive It account where some of our subject selectors are doing more work with kind of extending their special collections content. But the things that we run locally in the digital library are more of these larger domain crawls or things that have specific parameters about how they're captured.
For capture, we use a mix of Heritrix, which is used by the Internet Archive, and Browser, mostly, and then we also use some wget harvests for easy sites that are mostly in the state sector, where they're very static and easy to archive. And then for access, we actually use Open Wayback. I mean, internally, we need to do a little bit of QA. For analyzing the web archive, we use Elasticsearch and Kibana to have just a big index where you can run queries to see what we have, what is missing, and so on. And then for preservation, we're ingesting it in our collaborative preservation tool that we have together with the National Archives and the National Computing Center, which is based off Preservica.
Primarily by me. That's essentially the main part of my job is so I'm not a curator, but I support our curators in terms of building tools, but also helping them with any sort of technical issues they have. We currently don't do domain crawls in-house, and they're currently done by the Internet Archive. So, but all of our selective stuff, and including some internal broad crawls, are done in-house with our own support.
For crawling, our curators mostly use Archive-It. But as far as the administration of or management of the content in the repository and how it gets into SWAP, that's managed by our digital library systems and services team. And that includes a team of like infrastructure developers, but they have so many portfolios and so many projects going on, and web archives is just kind of this small slice of what they're able to work on sometimes. So, but there is technical support, and just trying to think of if there's anything else. But yeah, our web archive service manager, Nicholas Taylor, he does a lot of the kind of training, showing people how to configure crawls, how to QA, and he oversees those who are ingesting the content into the digital repository. And I think he's trying to train more people on how that workflow happens, because it's a little bit different and more complex than bringing other types of digital objects into the repository.
No, is our IT department who are in charge of this kind of work.
In general, we're working, we have a small technical team, so I'm the IT part, and Ben is the curatorial part of the web archiving team. So we have some support internally. This thing is, right now, we mostly do our crawls with outside partners. But we also do a few things in-house, and we want to, once the new building is settled in and everything is fine, we want to expand our internal operation for reasons of flexibility.
We began contracting the Internet Archive to collect our domain in 2006, and essentially we give them a specification for what we'd like to collect, which is generally all .au websites, as well as websites that are geographically IP located in Australia, like an Australian server. And each year they conduct a large-scale crawl and towards like a set quota of the number of URLs they're going to collect and deliver it to us. Originally, they delivered it to us on actual servers, the petterbox nodes that the Internet Archive had, but these days it's just hard disks that they send us in the mail, basically. In addition to that, we've had over the years some collaborative projects with them for developing tools and processes. So we've contracted them to do training on web archiving and things like that.
There are two parts to our collaboration. One is the domain crawls that we do twice a year, which are operated by Internet Archive, where we basically have a recurring contract with them with certain limitations and rules, and the results we receive via hard disks. And we get regular updates. We talk via Skype to see how the crawls are going. Then the second part is our collaboration with Archive-It, where we have a subscription to the service. And we use this for more targeted crawls. For example, the election crawls we had in 2017 and 18, and also European elections this year. Where we are more autonomous, we can try out different things and also try out different frequencies of captures. It's
generally a negotiation via email and telephone conversations that here's what we want, and it's just a sort of a procurement process basically, that we negotiate a cost for the project, and the library sort of signs off on a purchase order for it, and they go ahead and do it and send us the results.
The main one we have, so like I said, we we do a lot of local running of software, Open Wayback and Heritrix. But as we've started to get others in the library interested in working with web archives, there are kinds of web archiving that are more challenging to do manually. So if you want to crawl CNN every hour for the next week, it's really nice to have a service that can just automate that. And whereas like when we do large domain crawls, you can start them and then kind of monitor them and shut them down as needed. So we do use the Archivit service for some of the more subject scoped collections, and our special collections folks are the primary users of that. We have a library-wide account, but our special collections are the biggest users, and they have access to it, and they add new seeds, and they do the crawls, and they manage that. And then we're responsible for then taking those work files and ingesting them in the repository as part of the library's collections.
Project communication is all via Skype, documents, or email. And then project communication is for the broad crawls. We basically get the reports on an FTP site. We look through them, and then based on our analysis, we send the feedback results. And then their engineers try to adjust the scope, or take some things off, block some things, or go further on some sites. And in terms of Archivit, it's basically a self-service portal. So whatever we want to do, we put our crawl seeds there. We do our crawls. We test them. We check the QA. I mean, we do QA when we can. When we can't, we just accept it like this. And then, if there were problems, in rare cases where we really cannot figure it out, we open a support case. But in other cases, it's basically us working with it and not really interacting with the service provider.
For the actual describing what we're going to collect, that's just human communication, email and phone, and I think there's usually a documented agreement, like about what specific service they're going to provide to us. And then during the crawl process and after they've completed the crawl, they provide a limited portal that lets you preview the results of the crawl. So you can go and view the collected websites and view some reports and statistics about them. And then during the actual crawl process itself, the Internet Archive and our head of web archiving are the contact point for webmasters that might have an issue with the crawler. And so there's some negotiation there, and our head of web archiving will pay attention to some of the in-progress crawl reports and suggest scoping changes. We're collecting too much junk from this website that we don't really want, or there are things that are missing. Can we adjust the crawl configuration to be able to capture these things that we would like to focus on more?